is a culture, and it definitely is a way of life. I'm always thinking about the people in our block who were from Mississippi. And I once told somebody, if you would have given a chicken to somebody from Mississippi to cook, and a chicken to somebody from a Creole background to cook, you would have gotten a very different dish. In the first place, Creole cooks are going to make a chicken stew with a roux and brown gravy. And a Mississippi person's gravy might be white. If they were going to make a chicken pie, again, the gravy would be white. A sauce for the chicken pie that the Mississippi person would make would be white, made with milk and butter and all of that. And the Louisiana person's going to make a brown gravy. It's going to be brown. The way they're going to cook the same things will be different because it's a different culture that they're coming from. And we had Mississippi neighbors who made some delicious things, and I still wish I knew how to cook some of the things that they would make and serve. But what my mother would do with that same thing would be different.
Okay, I'm going to ask you about food in a bit. So right now I want to go about asking you about religion, the role religion played in your life. You were raised a Catholic, obviously, and how far back does Catholicism go in your family, and spirituality, how was that reflected in your family, and you did mention some things, but any kind of African influence do you ever see in your family at all as regarding spirituality or religion?
Well, some of the influences that I have noticed in my family as relates to my religion are strongly Catholic. As far back as I can remember, which is about 5 generations, not that I knew these people, but I knew about these people. And some of the reasons I know about them is that they were Catholic, and that the records, as far back as I can remember, my mother's family was Catholic. My mother was herself Catholic. Her mother was Catholic. Her grandmother was Catholic. Her great-grandmother was Catholic. Her great-great-grandmother was Catholic. We knew that they were Catholic, but there are also records in the Catholic Church which establishes that they were. When I was working on my mother's line and seeking documents and so forth, I discovered the marriage license for my mother's great-grandmother. And that's how I found her great-great-grandmother, whose name kind of comes down through the family too, because her name was Elizabeth Lambert. It was either pronounced Lambert or Lambert, and spelled Lambert.
That's French.
Yes, and the record was written in French. And what was written on the record was that her daughter, who was about to be married to someone named Robertson, was of age and therefore free to marry. And this person's name was Camazile. After her marriage, she was Camazile Robertson. And then Camazile Robertson had a daughter whose name was Mary. And when Mary married by her first marriage, her name became Mary Joseph. And my mother was speaking frequently about her grandfather, and she was saying, Pa Joseph, Pa Joseph. Well, until I saw this in writing, I had no idea that what she was talking about was somebody whose name was what I would have called Joseph. So he was a Catholic, staunch, and his grandson had lost his wife, and for several years, I guess he lived in a single state, and then he took up with a woman and started living with the woman who had children by him. So the woman came to my grandmother when this son of hers was at work in the swamps where he worked. And she said to my grandmother, you know, I can't take communion in my church. She was a Methodist, because I'm living in sin and I need to get married, and I can't make that marry me. So my grandmother said, well, then don't you worry about that. We'll take care of it. Now, my grandmother was Catholic. That was Mary Davis. She was a staunch Catholic. Okay, so when her son came in from the swamp, she knew the day was going to come and all, and he came to her house and he said, oh, all these preparations and stuff, looks like somebody's getting married. And so my mother said, her grandmother said, somebody is. He said, who? She said, you. So she made him marry the woman. And I just heard that his grandson had married a Protestant woman, and that my grandmother had supported the marriage. He came to the house just fussing and fuming because he felt that she should not have encouraged her son to marry out of the church, which Gom didn't feel was anything because he was living out of the church as far as she was concerned. So, you know, they had a problem with that, the two grandparents, but Gom did not pay much attention to what Pajasef had to say because she looked at it from a practical point of view. Her son wasn't living his religion anyway, and he was fathering children by the woman, and the children needed some protection, so she decided that she did the right thing. But anyway, she was